loud.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. It's leave meeting continue. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. It's
Okay.
recording.
This is Tchipakkan, and you are watching the Changing Times, Changing Worlds Wednesday show. And this is, tonight we are going to be talking about the thinning of the veil, the time around Halloween or Samhain or All Hallows, when people are able to get in touch with their beloved dead more easily. And tonight's guest, do you want to be called Tazika?
You can call me Amy.
Amy, okay. It's Amy Osborne, and see, I know her from the SCA, so we have lots of names. And Shae Rossi also, and they have come on tonight to talk about cool, fun, spooky foo stuff. This is going to be, I'm hoping people will join in and ask questions. Meanwhile, while we are doing the first parts where the guests get to speak, it'd be good if I've unmuted everybody, if you mute yourself at any point until you need to ask a question. So if the dog starts barking or your children come in bleeding or something, you can you can not share that with us. So I am going to do you want to go first, Amy?
Sure, that way we can get this shared screen thing done.
Yeah. So
okay,
let us talk about.
So the first slide just says the thinning of the veil. Why do so many cultures celebrate honor the dead in autumn? So let me go here. And I thought that would be bigger. So
how big can you make it? Not very big if they're on a cell phone.
Oh, I'm not. I'm actually on my computer this time.
No, I say if they're watching you on a cell phone.
Yeah. So October is known for its sly, haunting feeling. Every day the air feels more alive with energy. Too often people will sense a presence around them and ignore it because it's just your imagination. But it's actually spirit activity, and it's way more easy to access now. And will be through, I believe, November 3rd is the last of the Celebrating the Dead holidays.
Gregorian or Julian?
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Sorry.
That's okay. The calendars are all wonky because I don't use the same calendar as everybody else, and I don't know. Anyway.
That's me throwing a monkey wrench in.
That's okay, throw away. So this is the only pagan holiday left that the Catholic Church hasn't taken. They tried with All Saints Day, and it never took off in the Catholic religion. They just couldn't quite grab hold hard enough. Halloween and Samhain and the Day of the Dead, these are all very old, very pagan. From the day's beginning, these holidays were all the same. One of the other things here is there's not many people to answer, but does anyone celebrate by setting out a plate of treats for their dead?
We have done.
Is that similar to passing out candy?
It's more similar to putting a plate out for Elijah and at the Passover. It's called a dumb supper, and I think it's not unlike putting out a bowl of oatmeal for the brownies at Christmas.
Do you think that passing out candy came from this?
Yes, I do. What do you think? Amy?
I think that passing out candy was initially a bribe to the dead, maybe to not trick at this house because I've given you a treat.
I think it was
Children.
because the old ladies were putting out offerings to the ancestors. And sometimes, especially in the Appalachian areas, they would put out booze. And the local teenagers would go around and help themselves to the food and stuff that were put out. And they would put on disguises so no one would know who was stealing it. And that's where I think the Halloween tradition came from. But that's me.
That is entertaining. I'm gonna have to look that up because that's funny.
But
I think that trick-or-treating might be a little bit older than that, though.
certainly going around with a candle goes back to the old world.
Right.
Have you seen those spooky pictures of the turnip heads?
I'm not a big fan of the turnip heads.
I'm gonna see
I've
if I
seen
can
a
find
few.
picture.
They're so creepy, and I love them because of how creepy they are. I think it's an Irish tradition, if I'm not wrong. But I'm very like impressed because the turnips are like this big, and
They're hard.
they're much harder to carve, I would imagine.
You need a sharp knife.
And really special tools.
No, a sharp knife.
Yeah.
Remember, they were carving wood at that point. So
Yeah,
it's not harder than wood.
no.
In Germany, there's a tradition on November, I believe, 5th or 6th, that children would go around with lanterns singing for Saint Martin. I think that that goes into the same tradition of calling on the ancestors there.
That's really cool.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the last part of this slide. I can make it so I can see it. There we go.
Yeah, I gotta.
So many people prefer to perform divination rituals around this time of year. Does anyone have any success or unsuccessful stories this time of year practicing any kind of divination? I commonly read tea, and usually during October when I'm doing readings, they're far more talkative. I see far more symbols, and it's a lot easier to access that information this time of year.
Would it count that I had my first dream about my mother after 20 years?
Dreaming
If
is
it
the
counts to
divination.
you, then of course it counts.
Yeah, okay.
How long ago was that?
Night before last.
Oh, so this year.
Yeah, just recently. And I've never had a dream about her before. And she was almost alive. She almost wanted to talk to me, but she knew she was dead and she couldn't. And she was really real.
So the last little slide that I have here that I really wanted to share, it is a beautiful woman in a beautiful bubble. And the reason why I felt that this was so important to share in this segment is because protecting yourself this time of year is just as important as accessing, honoring, or celebrating your dead.
You can't get it bigger.
Let me see if I can make it bigger.
Bigger, yep. Take care of yourself, right?
Yes.
Words, barriers.
Barriers are so important this time of year, because without them, you can risk seriously draining yourself.
I understand that.
Okay. Does anybody have anything specific they want to talk about regarding the supernatural and the veil thinning and protecting yourself? Okay.
Well, I was going to throw in my perspective on it, which
Okay.
is that I don't see it as a thinning veil. I think that was come up with during the Victorian period, the way they were trying to come up with explanations for what they were perceiving, as we all come up with explanations. And my perception, based on being a modern person, is that it's a question of wavelength. And just as you get better radio reception in certain atmospheric conditions, that at certain bits of the year, the signal clarity is better. But
The air is drier, it's
whatever's
cooler,
going on.
there's not, yeah.
So this is going to bleed over into what I was going to talk about, but this time of year, I mostly focus on Irish tradition right now, and Samhain is the end of the year in the Irish traditions. So it's basically their New Year's Eve, and because it's this like in between time, it's considered a liminal space, and that's where magic is done, is the in between spaces. And instead of like thinking that the veil is thin for them, because in Ireland the veil is always thin.
Always.
There's like hardly a veil. I think it's like a night that creatures from the other world, the gods and everything, come and walk in the land, and that it's sort of like a I don't want to say like a rite of passage. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's like a seasonal thing where they are making a pilgrimage almost to our side, where because there's this liminal space, kind of like we all come into a little bit of their world as well.
I want to do that.
Well, that kind of makes sense, because so much of what people do when they're dead is based on what they expected while they were alive. So if you live through a lifetime of knowing that Samhain was when the relatives came to visit, when you died, you was like, right, that's when I got to go see my relatives at Samhain, because
Have you
that's
seen
when.
there's a Pixar movie about the Day of the Dead, and I'm spacing on the name.
Oh God, it's wonderful. I
Coco.
love that movie.
Oh, thank you. And that is like what the premise of it. That movie is fantastic. I love that.
What was the word?
Coco, like chocolate
Coco?
in Spanish. Yeah, it's a cartoon by, I think it's Pixar, and
It
it's
is Pixar.
absolutely phenomenal. Just absolutely gorgeous. It's perfect for this time of year, even though. Like,
And I like the Day of the Dead is another one that came out. I think DreamWorks came out with it almost the same time.
oh, okay.
And it's got it's a kind of a bet between La Muerte and there's a male and a female entity of the dead, and it's like I get all of the rotten people, and you get all of the loving people. I want your job, and you can have my job, and we're gonna bet, depending on, and whether this girl goes with the musician or whether she goes with the toreador, which one she picks will be who gets to run the land of the dead. And it's really fun. It is a fun movie. I have no idea what the name is, but good movies in the world. but I do think that we're taught by our by the stories we're told, and right now, movies and stories we tell ourselves.
All the time. Okay, so that Shae said would lead into what she wanted to talk about. So Shae, it's your turn.
Sorry, I was taking my pizza out of the oven. I do not have any slides because I did not realize today was Wednesday until like 15 minutes ago. So I apologize for that, but I wouldn't have much to show anyway. But I wanted to talk about, in Irish mythology, what's considered the birthplace of Halloween. And that's, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, and I apologize ahead of time, but it's the Cave of Cats, or Uain Nagat. And this is a natural formation in the ground that's basically like a fissure in the ground. And you can go down into it for quite a bit of way. And it's considered the place where the Morrigan exists and comes through from the other side. The Morrigan is a goddess of prophecy. Ooh, you like that, huh?
Apparently so.
Prophecy, sexuality, and war, as well as a bunch of other things. You've probably seen her. She has lots of crows usually. So she and her animals come out of this this location during Samhain, and in the old in like the Toyn, which is I want to say it's fairy tales. It's mythology from that from early days. This is where the Morrigan came out to challenge Cuchulainn, who was one of the heroes of Ireland. And in ancient times, there was a lot of activity around this site. It's an actual archaeological site, so they have all sorts of evidence that this is where people would go and spend like their New Year's Eve, which is Samhain. So the reason that it's called Cave of Cats is because one of the groups of animals that comes out with her is a bunch of cats, like panther style cats. It's not like kittens. Like these cats are coming to wreck your day, or maybe wreck someone else's day. Probably not yours. You all seem very nice. So yeah, you can actually go into this cavern. It's got like a short drop down, like a muddy incline, and then you can stand inside, and it's like 15 feet above you, and enormous. It's like this cave, a natural cave that has no light at all in it, and apparently it's an incredibly strong feeling of an otherworldly presence down there. Some people have a wonderful time with it, and others are very uncomfortable and try to get out as quick as possible. It used to be longer, but unfortunately they were doing road work nearby and collapsed the back of the cave. But you can still go in it. Yeah, I know. There's like a lot of it that got lost, and it's heartbreaking. It was in the 30s, I think, maybe in the 60s. I'm not sure. Oh, that's a turnip.
There it is. I found one.
Yes, they look like mummified things. Like, oh. Yeah. So if you go down into this,
what the hell is that?
That's a turnip. That's like one of the carved turnips.
That's what predated the jack-o'-lantern. Instead of carving a pumpkin, you carved a turnip. Pumpkins have the advantage of actually being hollow, whereas a turnip was solid if you ever chopped one up for Thanksgiving.
Can we change the screen? It's ugly.
I'm trying to be.
Thanks for the nightmare fuel. So anyway, if you do go down into the cave, there's some reinforcement around the entranceway that has Ogham on it, which is the carved lines that are very ancient, old ancient Irish writing. And I think it talks about Maeve. So Maeve is one of the aspects of the Morrigan. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I think that it's just fascinating to me. I'm obsessed with Ireland and all the magical places that you can crawl into and climb all over, and they're still finding stuff. So it's just kind of a reminder to me that we have our world that we've agreed upon, but there's always something else, like just kind of around the corner that you might not know about.
Are those Irish rings you have on?
Oh no.
No,
This
okay.
is just my bling.
I thought maybe you had something significant to Ireland.
Aside from being Irish, no. Not today. Did anyone have any questions about that, or does anybody know about this location? I had just found out about it like this year, last year. Okay.
No, I've never heard it, but I've dreamt it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a dropping with a very soft landing,
Mm-hmm.
and experiences I can't really describe. Different feelings.
I'll put a link to some pictures of it in the chat, so that you can see what it looks like, because it's also, I find it like a good meditation focus if you're deciding you want to do some journeying, like in your mind. Going into this location can be very powerful. Just do be aware that the Morrigan is a very strong goddess, and she may like your presence, she may not, she may like it a lot. So yeah. Just be aware of when we were talking about protecting ourselves earlier, this is definitely like a place where you would like want to ground and shield before going in, unless you were like wanting to be completely open for any reason. But yeah.
It
does
just
anybody have
familiar.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just
yeah,
familiar to me.
Yep, I agree. And the way that it's shaped, it almost like, I imagine that it feels like being inside a stone womb, like you're inside the earth, and like it's
Right,
it's
but there's no claustrophobia associated with it.
I have not been inside myself, but it's huge inside. Like it's like 3 people tall. You know, like I imagine that if you are claustrophobic, like I'm very claustrophobic, but I kind of want to still check it out. Oh, but you have to climb into like a hole to get in there. But once you're in there, then it opens up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, ground yourself before you go in.
Yes. And if you do decide to go there, make sure you check in with the local center first, because they will do guided tours for you, which they prefer to have people sign up for stuff. And I will put the name of the location in the chat, because I'm going to butcher that as well. But I think it's Cruachan. Yeah. And it's only $15 to go in. Well, pounds. Does anybody else have any locations that are similar to that, where they've gone in and felt something different, the divine, or some sort of thinning of the veil? Like maybe you're not in Kansas anymore?
My wife and I took a trip to Ireland last summer.
Ooh.
And the absolute high point of the trip was visiting Brú na Bóinne.
Absolutely amazing.
And the interesting thing is, when you go there, it's all, it's very controlled because so many people want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So you get on a bus and they drive you out to the site, and then they take people inside in small groups. And it's very small inside. So half the group could go in at a time. So, the tour bus came, and then we split into 2 groups, and they took 20 people in, and had a little talk about what's inside, and had a simulation of the light coming through on the solstice day. And the rest of us, got to mill around outside. Well, and then have our turn. And the interesting thing was that we went in with the first half, and when we came out, there was this very strong sense of wanting to walk counterclockwise.
Mm.
And I started to do that, and I kind of said, wait, that's not right. This is a solar site. So I stopped and went clockwise, and we had the interesting experience that there were a lot of tourists. We happened to go with a group that was primarily Japanese. And they were all going around counterclockwise, and they didn't seem to be noticing anything. We got halfway around to the back where there's another carved stone, similar in complexity to the one that you always see pictures of from the front entrance. And we just kind of stopped and sat with that for a few minutes. It was, the front one is all fenced off. The back side, it's like nobody cares. We could have gone up and put our hands all over it, and it was very tempting, but we didn't. But while we were doing that, this group of the Japanese tourists, came down walking around, and they walked right by us, completely oblivious, like they didn't even notice we were there, and didn't notice this, this giant carved stone we were looking at and photographing. And it was very strange how oblivious most of the tour group was.
I find that in
Do you
general.
suppose they're in their own heads?
I think they just weren't connecting at all. And the
Or
site
they
wasn't
were
interested in them
different way,
paying attention if they weren't going to. So my theory is that probably if you were going to really do something there, you should go around it clockwise, go in, and then come out and spiral back the other way. And probably the more times you did it on each end, the more before going in, the more energy you'd get out of it.
That's
And
interesting.
where was this exactly?
It's Brunaboyne or Newgrange.
Okay.
It's a very famous World Heritage site.
Megalithic king tombs. Well, they called king tombs, but they really don't know who was buried.
They think there were 3 people buried. They found remains when they originally opened it in the 1800s of, they think 3 people, but it was, for archaeological purposes, the thing was so messed up by the way it was originally opened that, it could have been anything.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there was a gentleman who was trying to excavate a bunch of locations in Ireland, and this was one of them, and he completely trashed a lot of things, like just digging through trying to get inside. But this was before archaeology was really a method,
An art
how to
form.
yeah.
Now they don't touch
a lot.
they don't touch anything. Yeah.
But so when I went to Ireland many years ago, we did visit that, and then I recently took a course on Celtic mythology and children's literature, and for my final project I did like a fake blog of me going to visit all of these locations that we had read about, and I can share that link with you if you like. They're actual locations where the stories take place in the mythology, and I missed so much. because that I was with my family and they're not pagan. So like we were not focused on that. And I cannot wait to go back because as many of the really well-known places that you may see in pictures and stuff, there's like 1,000 more that are like deeply connected to the spirituality and to the mythology of that country and surrounding countries. So, and I think that that is the case too in a lot of places. So like really doing your digging to find these holy sites can be, oh, hi baby, can be a wonderful experience.
As
Okay.
I understand, this was supposed to tie somewhat to Halloween. Does anyone have any experiences near Halloween?
I'm very focused on costuming, so that has been my Halloween focus for most of my life.
I used to, but then I grew up.
So my granddaughter came in and she said she wants to carve a turnip. Thank you, Tchipakkan. And my grandson just came in and was trying to tell you all good night because he's going to bed now. So that's what the interruptions were. Sorry.
Good night.
But
Good
my
to hear.
8-year-old granddaughter wants to carve a turnip.
I carved my last pumpkin and it rotted. And it made a mess. I'm
Try a
not sure.
vinegar spray. That usually helps.
What?
A light vinegar spray.
Oh, really? Oh.
Just don't use
I'll-
bleach because that's harmful to animals that are going to eat your pumpkin, but vinegar won't hurt them and might deter it.
I will try that. But mine just, the face crumpled down. Oh, it's bad. And stinky. So.
Well, much like when you're cutting an apple and you don't want it to turn brown, you would spray a thin layer of vinegar and water on it to prevent it from browning.
I put lemon. Yeah. Same
Same
thing.
idea with the pumpkin.
Yep. Okay.
Tchipakkan, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Because she's
Thank
very
you.
quiet tonight.
I have to shut myself up sometimes.
You're very quiet tonight.
Well, trying not to interrupt, but when people are saying interesting things. I think my funniest, I was reminded by the Morrigan. I was at an event once and somebody was doing something with toning as a way of worship and getting in touch. And so they would say, okay, let's pick and basically toning is just going, and holding it for a long, long time. And they said, okay, let's pick somebody to try and reach and ask for names from the audience. Somebody yelled the Morgan. Said, yeah, Morgan. Okay, let somebody do the Morgan. So we're all going, and it all sounded really lovely with lots of voices going together. And some people would harmonize. And the thing is that I just kept coming, and I would stop myself because I didn't want to interrupt this beautiful thing and call attention to myself, but I just be doing, and then suddenly, so afterwards I went down and I talked to him, and he said, I was hoping somebody would do that. That's why he picked the Morrigan, because he was hoping that she would come through that way. And my kids say that they're weird privileged. They don't have, it's not something special for the Samhain because they listen to all this stuff all the time. So does it come in more clearly? I think that depends on your training. I think that if you do it all the time, it might come in more clearly. I think that certain entities may want to join us more there. I certainly think that in cultures like the Mexican culture, like the Irish cultures, where when you die, you expect to be able to go back at Samhain or the Day of the Dead, you will be more likely to approach your living relatives at that point. But I'm also going to throw in, Trish Telesco did a workshop once I went to, talking about how it's cyclical and it works at the same way at Beltane as it does at Samhain, and nobody talks about it. That's for what it's worth. I haven't tried to reach spirits at Beltane, but
I'd love to mention too that Samhain is a harvest ritual. So if you have been setting your intention all year toward this date, Samhain is the time to start like reaping what you've sowed. So if you've been like working on something all year long, this is the time to like culminate that energy and do your magical working where you're like, okay, this is what I've created. Look at that, you know, energetically, spiritually, whatever, and then set forth your intention with that energy and with that, like, okay, so I've gotten this far with this, or this is this is what I want, and I deserve it. and just I did a ritual like this last year around the harvest time where I was like, okay, I've done the work, I put in the time, I've paid the price, I am ready for this thing, and this is what I want this coming year. And I got every single one of them. I kid you not. So this is a really powerful time of year to think about your past year and what you've done and the intention that you've been carrying through that year, and kind of, it's not really a climax too, because it's not going to go down, right? So you built up this energy and now you can ride the wave as opposed to like crashing down. No, you're just going to keep going because like it just rolls along. But definitely thinking of it as like a harvest season has helped me a lot as well.
Did you journal it or did you just think it?
Which part? Because yes.
The part that came true.
I was actually sitting at my altar speaking this part, but it is something that I've been journaling and like doing daily affirmations on and things like that. So yeah.
So she had a great segue into something I wanted to talk about real quick, but that was a few steps ago, so I'm going to go back. I have
Apologies.
a broom that every year I add to my broom. I freshen my broom, and I always do it in October. And I always do it at the end of the harvest season when I can gather more stuff to add to my
up there. Your broom up there.
Yes, it's on my bed.
Yeah.
And the reason it's on my bed frame is because I have sleeping problems. So I keep the broom on my headboard so that when I go to bed at night, I can sweep away any negative energy, and it always stays there. And every year I refresh it and add to it. Some people change their brooms.
What do you make it out
of? Different hay that I've collected from different fields.
Okay. Just curious.
Some people buy them.
No.
I like crafting my own magical instruments.
Yeah, that wouldn't work. Making it yourself is better.
You can also use thin branches.
Yes.
From like a favorite tree.
I'm going to start one.
When you start, it's going to start off really small. That is, I believe it's on year 14.
Okay.
And it's only that big.
I'm in no rush. I can take the time. Take the time so that each part I add means something.
Right.
I like that.
So, and by not starting a new broom, that leads into what Shae was talking about on building on top and letting go or embracing what has occurred this past year, but continuing on to the next year, still having a way to clean, sweep the energies.
Can we sweep away the whole last year?
No,
I'm kidding.
there's a lesson to learn.
I don't think so.
I'm not sure what the lesson is, but there's a lesson to learn.
I don't like it.
Well, we didn't like it, but as I tell people when they're contemplating suicide, it's like, if you do that, it's like dropping out and then you have to come back and do it all over again and take the whole damn class again. Just finish the class because otherwise you're gonna do over. Like, I don't want to do this over again. And I say, okay, fine. I've talked to a couple of...
I find it very interesting that as I heal, people from the past have coming back to me in dreams, and they never have before.
Maybe they just want to tell you something, give you one of these.
Yeah, but they're dead and they don't talk.
Well, that could be you not listening. No, I didn't mean that to be mean. It could be that you're not able to hear them yet.
I am not sure that I am able to receive yet, to hear them. I think you're right. I am working on it.
And this could be your thing that has been building all year for you. So, and especially if it's increasing in like power or frequency, then you might be in for a ride.
I'm always in for a ride. But this year I want a gentle ride.
I think we could use a gentler ride. Anybody notice that yesterday was the beginning of Mercury retrograde and it'll be going straight on election day?
Yes, everything went wrong yesterday. I had to do everything twice.
Well, that's Mercury retrograde, all right.
I know. I could have told you that without even looking at the stars.
But I think that a lot of people use Mercury retrograde as an excuse, when Mercury retrograde is a great time for introspection, reflection, resolving things, for anything that's redoing something. Is look at it again, look at it and then take a second look. Anytime it's saying slow down, and frankly, the next 3 weeks, we kind of have to. But another thing that I'm gonna say in 2 days is the Halloween is having a full moon this year. And in 2 days, we're having the new moon. And I think that if you want anything that's going to grow, you ought to be doing it at the new moon. People don't use the new moon enough, I think. I think that a lot of some groups do, but I think the new moon is a great time to do anything. If you want to start a diet, start it at the full moon, because that's the shrinking time. But if you want to grow something, started at the
you may get your Christmas cactus.
Yes, I should do that.
You may get a big one for me.
So we should probably talk about other traditions. Shae's kind of mentioned some of the Irish traditions.
Yeah.
Other than, giving children candy. There's also the dumb supper. Now, Amy talked dumb supper, which is you put out a plate. It's something like when you put whiskey on your relatives' graves, or their favorite brand of cigarettes or whatever.
Yeah, I do that.
I've seen a lot of the United States veterans adopt it, where on Veterans Day they'll put out a plate for their fallen comrades.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
So
I
it's
think that if you're going to get fed, you're a lot more likely to come back. Doesn't that make sense? If they're looking for you, if the door is open, if they got food and they've got your favorite foods, aren't you more likely to come visit if your beloved living ones are remembering you and trying to make you welcome? It just seems.
Mine will just clearly have to put out some coffee and maybe some crackers, and I'll come right away.
Cheese and crackers, yep.
But
Ice cream.
My mother coming the other night was the first person in my family that's died. We've had quite a few close members, and it's the first time I've ever had anyone come back.
So it might just be the first time you
lot.
remember it, though. So if you want to practice connecting more in your dreams before you go to sleep, like be like, I'm going to remember my dreams, I'm going to remember, and as soon as you wake up, write them down and do it every day, and you'll get closer and closer to remembering your dreams and to being
I usually have handsome men in my dreams. I don't have my family.
I would like to be in your dreams. Let's go.
Which are a lot of fun.
I want to touch on, sorry, my dog. I want to touch on the dumb supper and leaving out offerings for beings and creatures and such. When you do this, make sure you are very clear on who it's for and who you're inviting to your home or to this space.
Yes.
And be careful if you set up a tradition of doing this, because whatever you're honoring may be upset when you stop. So if you like miss a year or something like that, just be careful. You know, don't make like a commitment that you can't go through on, because you might not make whatever it is very happy that year. They would just be sad. And they might show their displeasure in small ways, you know, like you can't find your car keys for 2 days or something.
Yeah.
Or something more ingenious.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like the old story of the with the barn spirit, where the housewife put out the porridge with the butter on it because it was cold. She covered it with the oatmeal so that it would melt properly. And when he went out to get his Christmas porridge, there was no butter, and he got cross and he killed the cow. And then he ate it and discovered it was in there. And so if you're going to put sugar on it one year, you'd better put sugar on it all the years. If you're going to put butter on it, if you're going to give them booze, which I believe the Irish ones are very fond of, always give them booze. Do not go back to milk. So
I never knew you were supposed to do that, and I've always put alcohol, our family members' favorite alcohol on their graves. And I never knew I never knew that it had any meaning.
If you are going to do libations, and especially alcohol in America, just be careful, because the indigenous people that were here have a very complicated relationship with alcohol. So make sure you are asking first and listening to see whether or not this offering is accepted and wanted in your specific location. And that if you create a relationship with your land spirits, then you may be more inclined to hear whether or not they're like thrilled about that. So just be careful.
I'm pretty sure the grave diggers take care of it.
Yeah,
No,
a grave
no.
is like total. I feel like that's that person's space. Like the intention there is that you are focusing on that person. So I would like, if you're gonna wander out into the woods and be like, I'm pouring one out for my dead homies, and then like, you know, there may be something there that's not appreciative of that.
Yeah. Do you have a specific way of directing the offering?
Me
For
personally,
those who've not done it before.
So I work like I'm establishing a relationship with the other crowd. So I'm being very careful because when I missed a day doing something that they had been enjoying, which was a tarot card reading with a fairy oracle, I fell down the stairs twice. So so I had to like break the habit with them, but at the same time, like the other day I could not find my journal. And then I found it in the place that I had looked 3 times. So I was aware, I'm like, okay, you're making your presence known, you need some attention, whatever. So I just talked to them. I'm like, here you go. This, like, I appreciate that my journal showed back up. I acknowledge that you are around and that you are wanting some attention. So, and then I like put out milk with honey in it as an offering and just leave it on the, like, next to the window. And I'll be like, I hope that you enjoy this and have a nice day. Please don't break my toe again. I didn't have that part. I don't want to give them any ideas.
And when I'm doing it, as I'm putting it out, verbalize what my intention is out loud.
Yep. Yes, same. Yep.
It's helpful to say it out loud so that you feel like you're being heard, because your group may be listening to what you have to say, but when you speak it, you reaffirm it.
Yeah. Same thing, like if you're trying to connect with an ancestor, don't like don't be like, I am open to hearing whatever is out there, like a Ouija board. Like, you don't want to do that. Be very specific. So like, I am inviting into my, like, cast a circle and then be like, I'm inviting into my space, you know, that those beings that will help me reach my greatest and good, or like that have good intentions for me, or I want to talk to grandma. Like, be very, very direct, because otherwise other things that are hanging around are going to be like, ooh, an open channel, let's jump on this.
I like that, almost asking for help. Do you have something that you could share with me that would help me?
Yeah,
be
but once
careful
again, you gotta
with
be
the wording
careful.
of that.
You don't want to do the Ouija board thing of just, you want to know who you're dialing.
I don't do the Ouija board.
Well, the thing is, anytime you put out a generic call to whoever's out there, you could get something like that. So you want to be very picky.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, and
I don't know if all of you have been to all of these sessions, but there was one a couple of months ago about contacting people who have passed on. And one thing that's really important is that if you try to reach somebody and they don't answer you right away, it may not be that they don't want to talk to you or they're not available. It's more likely that they've moved on and have other stuff to do, and they're not just hanging out waiting for you to ask them to talk to you.
How rude.
I always have the impression that they're levels. That some people might be at the level where they could communicate with you, and some people have moved to a higher level and might not be available to you, and like an old soul, you know, someone who. All right, let me put it this way.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I completely agree.
Folks can't leave this world. Then there are people who, when they die, you know they're going they're ready to go. They're going to a good place, a place they want to be. And then I think there are people that go to a higher level. And I don't, that's my own feeling. You guys have done the research on it. I have not. But that's my feeling.
Sorry.
Okay, well, I see that we have come to the end of the hour.
Oh my goodness.
Has anyone got anything they want to finish up with?
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for anything I presented?
Or say me.
I don't think so. I think you did a very clear job.
Sorry about the turnip.
I do want to throw out that if you're asking specifically for help, if you're like putting it out to the universe, right, or like God or whatever is your big good instead of big bad, yeah, like your big major whatever, making that vague and being like, please give me the person that will be like perfect for me, you know, for the next stage of my life, or who will benefit me, like give me the job that I need to grow in this way. Like that's okay to be like really vague about. But if you're asking like a specific entity or ancestor or deity or themselves, be very careful on how you word that, because they have a sense of humor, and you might get what you asked for, but the way you get it, you know, may not be what you intended. So make sure that you have a very clear visualization in your mind and that your words echo that. So don't say like, help me get this job, you know, like, cause like somebody might die who was going to get the job instead. Like, that's a very, very like fringe, like thing, but that's the kind of thing they're like, oh, I'll help you. Sure. Yeah. Let me just do it this way. So if you want to say something like, bring me the best, most positive outcomes to help me move into the career that I need, you know, that will help me be the best I can be, or something like that. Like that's it's more vague. Yeah. You're leaving it open so that you're not pigeonholing, I want this specific thing. So you're going to get what you really need as opposed to what you think you need.
Right. Well, thank you. You guys have taught me a lot tonight.
Does anybody else have any questions or anything they wanted to share?
I'm
Okay,
good.
well, that'll be it. I'm going to remind everybody that the conference is coming up on the 15th. On the 15th, no, the 16th, 9th to the 15th of November. Yeah, don't bother saying it if you're not going to say it right. Which will be on the evenings during the Monday through Friday and all day long Saturday and Sunday. It'll be a lot like this. For $25, you get to see all of them live, as many as you like, and then you get to watch the recordings for a month. So you can do it at your own leisure. And if you, for $50, you can take up to a year and keep rewatching them. So that's not a bad price for a large pile of panels and workshops. So do think about doing that. It's at ctcw.net, and look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday. So
see you
thanks
then.
for coming. And
Thanks for letting me ramble. Good night.
Thank you both. You are wonderful.
Oh,
this
thanks.
is why we like Changing Times, Changing Worlds, is because we can have this kind of conversation. You don't have to pretend that you are skeptical when you know what you've done. So.
And just so they know, I'm your ignorant sister.
No, you are entering into a new part. You're doing something that I've been doing for a while, but I'm not, you know, everybody learns new things. You're turning out to be a lot more adept at this than I'd expected.
I think like as you go along your path, you're going to realize that you've been on the path for longer than you realized. If that makes any sense. Like you're going to look back and be like, I've been doing magic this whole time. So yeah, and wherever you are is where you are.
Okay. Well, I'm
You
learning.
guys.
I'm learning.
Great.
And
Good
I'm
night. Thank you so much.
I'm
It
going
was
to
nice seeing all of you.
yeah,
Lovely meeting
click
you.
the thing now.
Bye.
Lovely meeting you.
All right, wait a minute. I've got to stop the recording first. How do I do that?
I didn't get to say goodbye to the other girl.
Okay, well, I got to. How do I stop the recording? Stop the
Go
recording.
down
There
to
it
the
is.
bottom.